In order to build the confidence, get prepared, be positioned, have everything lined up, have the LinkedIn profile ready, have your bio done, know what your value proposition is, have an elevator pitch, right? The elevator pitch is so important. It brings confidence.
Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a HerCsuite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I bring you inspirational stories and insights that will help you with the arc of your career and your life. I'm also the founder of HerCsuite, a network and community where we help advance women in all areas of your life, from the boardroom to finding what's next and scaling your business. Check us out at HerCsuite.com. We also offer board retreats designed to fast track your success in landing a board role. And today we are going to be pulling back the curtain on how you can make a difference in your board interview with my guest, Naomi Kent. Naomi Kent is the CEO and founder of the Boardroom Company. She has over 20 years of experience in helping people land board roles. She is our board circle chair for our mastermind, which meets monthly, and she's the co-founder of HerCsuite Retreats. I am looking forward to this conversation because I know you are going to learn key insights that will help you in the next board conversation. So let's get started now. Naomi, I'm really excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
We are going to have such a great conversation about boards and in particular board recruitment and what happens behind the scenes. But before we get into that, there may be some listeners, believe it or not, who don't know you. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about your career and how we are getting to this moment right now of talking about boards.
Sure. So, Natalie, I've worked with boards of directors and the businesses that surround them for sort of over about 22 years now. And that means working with the consultants, the bankers, the lawyers, and also the recruitment firms and the search firms. I also worked for a search firm and now primarily work with individuals who are seeking out corporate board seats, either for the first time or maybe they already have corporate board seats, but they're looking for more. I take them through programs. We also have board readiness retreats and monthly meetings here at HerCsuite, where we prepare and position new and sort of existing board members for a corporate board career.
And we recently had this conversation on LinkedIn Live. So every Saturday we have time together on LinkedIn Audio Live where we talk about these board topics, because I think it's really important for people to hear the behind the scenes and the story and the secrets really of what's happening. And it's so different when you are looking for a board role compared to getting a job. Can you share what are some of the steps that are involved in the board recruitment process for private company boards compared to public boards, and then also boards in general? Because I think people don't understand that your resume and the process, it's not the same for a board role compared to a job.
No, you're absolutely right. It isn't. From everything, really, from where are board opportunities advertised, where do you find them, who do you speak to, and what do you say? And then from the paperwork, right, and your LinkedIn, everything has to be adjusted. Everything has to be tailored to the audience. There are different types of companies recruit a little differently depending on who they are. Generally, if you are a business in the Fortune 1000, that's the top 1000 firms by revenue, then you will most likely be using one of the major to mid-sized recruiting firms to recruit your board. So it's quite involved, but those are the companies, those very large headhunters through to some of those medium-sized headhunters are the ones that will cover the Fortune 1000 and possibly others if they have relationships. But for the remainder of the businesses, private and very small public, you will generally, or let's say medium public, private as well, you will generally find that they are recruiting through a very high quality network of their own. So they may use the individuals around them, like their bankers or their lawyers, or they may go to someone, an investor that they have a great relationship with, to say, is there anybody that out there, or do you have networks that can help us find a particular type of person? And so when a board knows what kind of person they're looking for, they will start to make that connection and will start to ask. And so it's really important that if you're going for those Fortune 1000 companies, that you do spend time getting to know those recruiting firms. But then if you're looking for a firm that is not part of the Fortune 1000, that you take the time to really spread the word about the fact that you would like to join a corporate board, so that as many people as possible know about your goal and know what you have in mind. So from the way that they recruit, it really depends on the company.
And part of that process really involves the CEO. And I think people don't understand how the CEO is involved at that beginning state, because they want to make sure that they are aligned with values and things like that. Can you talk about how important that role is in the process that people might not understand? A lot of times people think it's the board, but it's not only the board.
Yeah, CEOs, their board is for many different things. If it's a corporate board, they're there to represent the shareholders and the stakeholders. But as we all know, they work so closely with the management team. And so it's in the management team's interest to have the right people on their board. Now, that's not saying that, it's exclusively the CEO's decision. No, but often a CEO will go to a headhunter, or a CEO will be the person to instigate a board search. And especially if the strategy of the company doesn't really line up with the experience and skill sets that are existing on the board that they have. So they have to go out and find new people. And so this is critically important, that you don't want to just solely focus on networking with board members. As I said before, you've got lawyers, bankers. They frequently get questions from people to say, hey, do you know anyone that could join our board that has this particular background? And so, thinking through who are the executives, and actually I'd even argue the CFOs frequently know about board positions as well. So it's CEO, CFO, COO even, and then you could even go down to things like general counsel, who again will be aware of a board search that may not be advertised, right? It may not be with search firms and things like that. And then of course you got to remember that a lot of people will be aware of you from a number of different ways. Of course, it's if you've met with them and you've had a conversation with them, but it's also some of your visible online profiles like LinkedIn, for example, which is extremely valuable. You need to make sure that that is fully up to date and representing you as a corporate board member. Otherwise, you run the risk of them just not knowing, right, that you have the capacity to either be a board director or to take on more boards. And so just really important to make sure that you have all of that lined up, so that when someone says, oh, I'm looking for a board member who has this profile, they immediately think of you.
And I really learned from you about that in our boards retreat in preparing. So one of the things that we did to help our members that were attendees that were coming to the board retreat is we revamped everyone's LinkedIn profile, from the header to their personal headshot. And then the wording is really important. If you don't have things like board director, board member in key places, no one knows that that's either your experience or your interest. How does that work when you're looking at it at your LinkedIn and you're looking at other people and they don't have board member, board director? You're just automatically going to think that that's not even on their horizon.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think we would all do that just naturally if we were looking at someone's profile. The other one, talking about roles and responsibilities and actually putting it out there, which is absolutely essential. But then there's also things, and again, this is also what we do on our retreats, is we talk about personal brand and executive presence. You have to remember that the board of directors are the most top roles you can get in any firm, right? So this isn't a role that is just handed out to anyone. And so just really important to remember that everything from your photograph? Do you look like a board member? And if you're wondering, well, what does a board member look like? Give me a call. I can give you some examples. But my advice would be go to one major publicly traded company, go to their website, have a look at their board of directors, look at how the photographs are. For men, we see less ties and suits. We see more sort of sport jackets. There's more of this mature look. When it comes to women, again, more of a mature look, a more understated look. It's more of a Chanel suit than a pinstripe suit, right? Because we all know when we go to work every day as an executive, we have to look like an executive, like we're working. But all directors they just don't have that kind of look. So again, give me a call, let me know, and I can walk you through it. But certainly, online you can see those things. So, really just to summarize, we've got obviously letting people know, making sure that your profile is representing you as a board director. Because again, don't forget, not everybody knows you as a board director. Most people might know you as an executive or from 10 years ago when you were a consultant. So what are you doing now? Who are you today? So just make sure that every profile you have online is updated and does represent who you are today.
One of the things that we talk about in preparing for conversations, and when you're having a conversation with a recruiter or you're having a conversation with the board, is preparation. And sometimes people don't understand how important that being prepared is. What are things that people need to be reminded of to be more visible and stand out compared to other candidates for board positions?
If I was searching for a job, I would probably call somebody up and say, "Hey, I'd love 15 minutes. I'm actually actively looking for a job right now, and I love your advice," or something like that. That is not what you want to do for boards. In fact, that is actually the opposite of what you should do. And so a lot of people make the mistake of doing that when they're doing a board search, is they sort of mimic the job search, but it's not like that at all. You've got to remember with governance and all these other rules and laws and regulations around boards is you never want to feel like you're being pressured to hire somebody onto your board. So when you network with someone, you never want to ask for help and you never want to ask for a favor. You don't want really to ask for anything. There is a way, and we take our clients through that, but there is a way to have a conversation with someone. Let them know about your desire to join a board, but never having to ask, and actually probably getting a lot out of that meeting. And so I actually coach people through how to manage that entire process from beginning to end so that it's a win-win for actually both individuals. I mean, I'm sure we've been in those networking meetings when we're trying to look for a job, when either someone's asking you for a job or you're asking for a job, and you feel like, you just sort of suck the energy out of somebody and ask them for a lot of favors, but just giving them nothing in return. That's the total opposite of what we want from a meeting that you will have with someone influential about your board career. And you know what we're trying to do, Natalie? We're trying to help people not only do the right thing, but actually avoid making mistakes. Mistakes at this level have a huge impact on your ability to get onto a board. And so for anyone listening here, if you're thinking about starting or launching a board career, I would encourage you to get some advice, and not from someone who sits on a board either. Come to one of us or come to someone who has done this type of thing before, because we can really help you save time, resources, energy, reputation too, by actually launching it in the right way. So there is a lot at stake here, and I think that's why people want to take it seriously and they want to do it right the first time around.
When you talk about reputation, I can imagine that it's a small, even though we talked about 1,000 companies, but getting on a paid board role, a board seat in a corporation, it isn't as big as you think. And people do talk, and especially if you are talking to a recruitment firm or other ways that companies are finding you. So you do not want to have them say, well, you don't want to talk to that person because they came in and they weren't prep. They didn't have a clue of what they wanted to do. And one of the things that we do is really help people figure out which board type is right for you. And that is so key in your conversation, is knowing ahead of time if it's an advisory board, a private board, a company board, public, How should someone be thinking about that when they're in that interview, prepping for the interview? You need to know those things.
This is actually, again, another mistake people make is they dive in to write a board bio. They stumble, and actually a lot of people just stall. They actually stop. They don't know what they're meant to be writing. And they don't know what they're meant to be writing because they don't know who their audience is. And so if you don't know who your audience is, it's very difficult to actually do the whole process of getting onto a board. So you'll just stay stagnant, not knowing what to do. So again, for those of you on the call who are listening, and who are thinking, yeah, it's been a year now and I don't really know. I've been thinking about getting onto a board for a year or two or whatever. The reason is probably because you haven't figured out what type of board you even want to join in the first place. But once you determine, so for example, I have a client right now and she's come from an banking and investment background. We figured out recently it's mutual funds and credit funds are a good fit for her. And the reason she had been spinning her wheels was because she didn't know that. She's like, well, CPG, it's not really my thing. Oil and gas, nope, not that either, right? So now that she's figured it out, she can actually plan. And so to your point, if you had an interview tomorrow, ask yourself, who would the interview even be with? What kind of company? Even if you have a call with someone you have to know what kind of board you want to join. I often give the example, it's like going out there and saying, hey, Natalie, I'm looking for a job. Do you know anywhere where I can find a job? And then that's it. That's all you know. It's just work. So it's too vague. It's too broad. And unfortunately, people can't help you if they don't know what type of board you want to join. And then you might be asking yourself, what type of board should I join? That's determined from a number of different things. We have an assessment that we run here. And then also we look at the individual uniquely and determine what might be the right fit. And so that's a really important step. In fact, it kind of dictates and determines the rest of the program that you're going to be on. So yes, it's essential.
And once you do get that conversation, you're having the conversation, and as a candidate, you may walk away believing that was great. I did great. And then the recruiter may have a different idea. What are some things that a recruiter is looking for in that conversation that is either good or bad?
So if you're on with a recruiter, I think some of the first calls with recruiters will just be to determine if you have the experience, right? So if they're looking for someone who has, run a business of a certain size, or they've been involved in M&A, or they will use the recruiter to, first of all, just go over those things and make sure that they check the box. So you will find that. The only thing is a lot of people don't take those recruiter meetings very seriously. Having worked for a recruiter, I sometimes had people Friday, wearing a hoodie, talking to me. And we've got to then pass that person over to our clients. So it's almost like you're a product, essentially. I'm not going to pass over a product that doesn't represent well, right? And it's sort of a bit of an awkward conversation to someone to say, hey, please don't show up with a hoodie, especially when these people are at the C-suite, right? So, you kind of just move on. There is plenty of candidates out there for a lot of these individuals. They actually don't maybe show up so well in the first hand. So I would say first piece of advice would be prepare for the interview with the recruiter as if it were an interview, like the real interview. Make sure you know what you're going to say. Make sure you know what you want. Make sure your value proposition. Make sure you're very clear speaking and that you are listening very well and you're asking the right questions. Again, we do interview prep here as well, so we can help with that. And then the sort of second piece, I guess, is understanding what the recruiter needs and demonstrating that. I always say to people, you don't need to overdo your achievements. They speak for themselves, or they should speak for themselves. So you don't need to go above and beyond to prove yourself to somebody, but at the same time, you do need to make sure that they can check all those boxes. And then after that, really a lot of the work is all around, are you the right fit for the board? So do you have the right cultural fit? And that's a major piece. And that happens probably less with the recruiter and more with the business itself. So that's the sort of second part, which again, we can't prepare for that. We either are a fit or we're not, but that is definitely a piece of what boards look for.
One of the ways that we help women prepare for their board interview is really tying in. We talked about the personal brand and the pitch, but it's really the whole package of being confident. And I want to end on that because I think being confident really shows in all things that you do, whether you're saying you want to get on a board, you're not hesitating, you're very confident. What are things that people need to be reminded of with that piece of confidence when they're in those conversations?
Well, the people that are confident are the ones that have prepared and who are positioned and who have done all the work, right? This is not something that you just want to throw yourself in the deep end and go, I'm just going to see if I can swim, right? This is not that. Maybe you went into your first meeting with confidence, but you'll go into the second with none because of the way the first meeting went. You're probably going to crash and burn in a meeting if you're not prepared. So I would say, in order to build the confidence, get prepared, be positioned, have everything lined up, have the LinkedIn profile ready, have your bio done, know what your value proposition is, have an elevator pitch, right? The elevator pitch is so important. It brings confidence right there. And so I would say for everyone here listening, do take this very seriously. It is one of the top jobs in the world. It can be extremely lucrative, and you can, be on a board, after your corporate career and into what's so-called, retirement time. It can keep you motivated with purpose and really driven, right, to get to the next stage. And so I think it's a wonderful channel, but it is very competitive and you do need to be prepared and positioned correctly. So hopefully that was helpful.
Naomi, I'm so glad that we had this conversation. If people want to learn more about you and the work you're doing, where should they go to find out how they can work one-on-one with you?
I'm the founder of theboardroomco.com, and I'm also, in partnership with HerCsuite, running a number of different programs there. So we're running board readiness retreats, which for those of you who want a fast track way of getting onto a board, you don't want to spend the next 3 months going down this road. You just want to get it done in 3 days. We have an option for you. And then for those of you who want to take a few weeks, we have options like that as well. And the great part about, I think, what you're doing, Natalie, is you have such a phenomenal network there, which helps to create and build on people's board careers as well. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you're accountable and that you continue to work on your board career. We all do a course and then very quickly forget about it. So we don't want that to happen. And so we're really making a big effort to make sure that we stay in touch and that there is an accountability group. It's sort of like a momentum group just to keep the momentum going.
Exactly. And I'm going to see you today at our momentum group. So I can't wait for that. Naomi, thank you so much for joining me today. If people want to hear us talk about boards, you can join us on Saturday mornings and hear the conversation and join there. And I'm really glad that we had this time together. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. I hope if you found this conversation helpful, you'd visit us at your favorite app and rate and review the show. It really does help us get found by other people, and it also will help another woman get a board role. So share the podcast out with your network. And if you found this episode of help and you're interested in learning more about boards, reach out to Naomi Kent or me. Our information is in the show notes. And as always, keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.